In the third year of trying to win over Arthur Sterling, the system suddenly told me it made a mistake. It wasn't that it got the target wrong. It got the player wrong. I misheard. The player is supposed to be Chloe, not Zoe. Chloe will be at the class reunion tomorrow. Zoe, you don't need to try and win Arthur over anymore. Just tell Chloe to come. I was silent for a moment and softly said, okay, this was for the best. Arthur never liked me anyway. This undefined, nameless relationship should have ended a long time ago. When the system told me it had the wrong person. I had just finished knitting Arthur's scarf. Was supposed to be my birthday present for him. On my phone, the message I just sent was still visible. Arthur, guess what I got you for your birthday this year? The message sank like a stone in the ocean. Just like always, Arthur never replied to my messages right away. The system chattered away next to me. Oh man, look at this mess. Your name and Chloe sound so similar. Didn't look closely and accidentally bound myself to you. Good thing you didn't manage to win him over in 3 years. Otherwise, if you succeeded and then I found out I messed up, my job would be gone. My bad. I should have realized it. When you couldn't win him over after so long. I mean, Chloe's profile says she's smart and beautiful. How could anyone not like her? It suddenly went quiet, then laughed awkwardly. I don't mean you're not good. Haha. It's just that our love facilitation system specifically chooses couples who already have mutual feelings and ambiguity. This really was a big mistake. I know, I said. You don't have to explain. I finally understood why. Arthur and I had clearly done everything couples do, yet he absolutely refused to publicly acknowledge me as his girlfriend. Why? No matter how hard I tried, I could never make him like me. Why didn't I realize it 3 years ago? Arthur was allergic to stupidity. How could a guy like him ever like an idiot like me? I planned to go to Arthur's house to pack up all my things. After all, Chloe was coming tomorrow. I didn't want to be caught between the handsome guy and the beautiful girl playing the pathetic clown begging for love. But I didn't expect Chloe to have already contacted Arthur in advance. Through the fence, I saw Arthur sitting on his balcony painting while on speakerphone. Chloe's cheerful voice came through the phone. So are you looking forward to seeing me tomorrow? Yeah. Arthur dragged out the word old classmates. I'm pretty looking forward to it. Asked. So you're not looking forward to seeing me specifically? And here I even prepared a birthday present for you. Don't you want to know what it is? What is it? It's a super hard math problem. If you can solve it, I'll tell you a secret. Your early birthday present has been sent. Please bring the answer to the class reunion tomorrow. Offer expires soon. Mr. Genius. I heard Arthur chuckle softly. He put down his paintbrush and picked up his phone. Interesting. Arthur never answered my calls while he was painting. Even though I expected it. Seeing it still made my eyes sting. Pathetically, I turned to leave. My phone suddenly buzzed. It was Arthur. He finally replied to my message. Probably out of convenience. There was only one word, boring. I was definitely a boring person. Which is why the only birthday present I could think it was an original scarf. In Arthur's words, it was probably something like, because you don't have a brain, you can only offer cheap manual labor. I couldn't be like Chloe, designing a super hard math problem to discuss with Arthur. I wouldn't even be able to solve a problem of that difficulty. I couldn't get my things today. I walked home alone. I had had a crush on Arthur since high school. Or rather, I was just one of the many girls who had a crush on Arthur. We were neighbors but standing next to the radiant Arthur. No one noticed. Plain, invisible Zoe. The only thing that made me different from the rest was that I used my neighborly advantage to deliver love letters to him. For other girls, every time Arthur took a letter, he would say, only good for running errands. You're so dumb. Dumb. That was the evaluation he gave me from childhood to adulthood. But he didn't know. I just wanted an excuse to say a few more words to him. I never thought the secret crush would ever see the light of day, until the summer before my senior year, when a system found me. It said it was a love facilitation system, choosing men and women who already had mutual feelings, to start a conquest. Standard for a successful conquest was officially declaring yourselves boyfriend and girlfriend. Our system's main goal is to let love change the world. After a successful conquest, you'll also receive a generous cash bonus. But I didn't hear anything after that. I only heard 6 words. Already had mutual feelings. So Arthur actually liked me a little bit too. My heart leaped with a joy I had never felt before. So after finding out he got injured playing basketball, I gathered my courage and knocked on his door. Take care of me. Hearing my intentions, he leaned against the door frame, smirking through half-lidded eyes, offering help for no reason. What do you want? I looked up at him. You facing him. I couldn't lie. I whispered, I want you. He burst out laughing. You're such an idiot. But he opened the door. Summer was long. Every day I braved the scorching sun to run from Unit 4 to Unit 1. The AC broke and his leg was injured so he couldn't move well. I climbed the ladder to check it out. While he held it steady, I lost my balance and fell into his arms. We rolled onto the floor together. It was summer, so we were dressed lightly. I felt his body react and pushed him away, blushing, but he grabbed both my wrists and pinned them above my head. Didn't you want me? Why are you backing down now? He gave a half smile. His eyes reflected my stunned face. As our lips and teeth met, I heard his voice. If you want it, let's try it. That try lasted for 3 years. Only after trying for 3 years, we still weren't officially boyfriend and girlfriend. During that time, it wasn't like I never asked to make it official. Does it matter if we're officially boyfriend and girlfriend? You wanted me, you got me. Isn't that enough? My brain wasn't as sharp as his. I couldn't navigate the twists and turns in his words. I want to be your girlfriend. I don't like restrictive relationships right now, he said. Is the title of girlfriend really that important to you? Do we really need to fight over something so trivial? It is important, wanted to say, but I couldn't out-argue him. It always made me look like I was making a big deal out of nothing. Over time, I started brainwashing myself. He does like me, the system wouldn't make a mistake. He just doesn't want to be tied down. Give it some more time and we'll eventually become a real couple. But now the system told me that this relationship was a mistake. From the very beginning. When I got home, I sat quietly for a few hours. I picked up my phone and sent Arthur a message, even though he might not care. But I still wanted a clean end to what we started. Let's end this. The next day at the class reunion, I arrived early. Arthur wasn't there yet, but Chloe was. As the class president, she was surrounded like a star in the middle of the table. Oh wow, Little Glasses is here too. When there are students with similar names in a class, classmates often add prefixes to differentiate them, like boy/girl, big/little, fat/skinny. It was the same for Chloe and me, but the way we were differentiated was different from everyone else. It was Chloe. I was Little Glasses. Whenever she was around, no one called me by my name. Chloe looked at me, a hint of interest floating in her eyes. Oh stop. Don't say that about Zoe. She doesn't wear glasses anymore. Stop giving her nicknames, she said with a grin. But she was the one who complained in high school that people couldn't tell us apart, and gave me that nickname in the first place. True. Without her, Glasses Zoe is actually pretty cute. A guy suddenly said, yeah, our Little Glasses is a beauty. Now Zoe, do you have a boyfriend? Hey, Liam Mason, weren't you two asking me about grad school advisors earlier? Chloe interrupted. Let me tell you about it before the reunion officially starts. Oh right. Hey Little Glasses, come sit at our table. Another guy enthusiastically invited me. No need, sorry. I'm late. Cool voice sounded from behind me and my breath hitched. Whoa Arthur. The genius finally come sit. Our classmates enthusiastically swarmed him. I silently moved to the side. Arthur, sit here. Chloe smiled, pointing to the empty seat next to her. Arthur cast a fleeting glance at me. What's everyone talking about? It's so lively. Just chatting. Oh right. They were just saying how Little Glasses look so pretty. Now that she took her glasses off, the guy pointing at me said, oh. Arthur casually tossed his bag onto the chair next to mine, sweeping over me. As I stood there, I didn't look at him. Instead, the moment he sat down, I grabbed my bag and walked over to the furthest table. Arthur raised an eyebrow, his expression unreadable. As soon as I sat down, I heard his voice again. He gave a short laugh looking at the guy. When did you go blind? The air in the private dining room suddenly felt as thick as mud. The guy who had praised me, a mild-mannered former classmate named Ben, flushed a deep, embarrassed red. He opened his mouth to defend himself, or maybe to defend me, but under Arthur's mocking, half-lidded gaze, Ben just awkwardly rubbed the back of his neck and fell silent. A few people chuckled uneasily. Chloe covered her mouth, her eyes sparkling with barely concealed amusement. Arthur, don't be mean, Chloe chimed in, her tone dripping with that familiar, artificial sweetness. Zoe really does look nice today. It's just a different vibe. If you say so, Arthur replied, his voice lazy. He didn't even look in my direction again. He reached for his water glass, leaning back in his chair with the casual arrogance of a king holding court. 3 days ago, if Arthur had humiliated me like this in front of 24 people, I would have shrunk into myself. I would have spent the rest of the night agonizing over what I did wrong, analyzing his words, wondering if my outfit was too plain or my makeup too messy. I would have texted him a long, pathetic apology for embarrassing him. But today I just felt tired. A profound, bone-deep exhaustion washed over me. I looked at Arthur's handsome profile, the sharp jawline, the casual mess of dark hair I used to run my fingers through while he slept. For 3 years, I had treated this man like a deity. I had tiptoed around his moods, swallowed my pride, and accepted the title of a secret, nameless convenience. And for what? Because a broken piece of AI told me we had mutual feelings. Host. The system whispered in my mind, its mechanical voice sounding incredibly guilty. I'm so sorry. It's fine, I replied internally. You just pulled the curtain back. I'm the one who chose to stay on the stage. I didn't storm out. I didn't cry. I simply picked up the menu, ordered a glass of water, and ate my food. Throughout the dinner, the table revolved entirely around Arthur and Chloe. They were the golden pair. They spoke about their respective careers, throwing out industry jargon and witty banter that left the rest of the table in awe. Halfway through the meal, Chloe leaned toward Arthur, a playful glint in her eye. So, Mr. Genius, did you solve the problem I sent you? Arthur's lips curved into a genuine smile, a smile he rarely if ever gave me. He reached into the inner pocket of his jacket and pulled out a folded napkin, sliding it across the table to her. Chloe unfolded it, her eyes scanning the ink. A small gasp escaped her lips before she beamed. You used the Fourier transform approach? I thought about that, but the boundary conditions were so messy. Only if you constrain them linearly, Arthur said smoothly, resting his chin on his hand, looking at her with undeniable interest. You overcomplicated it, Chloe, just like you did in AP Calculus. Shut up. Chloe laughed, playfully hitting his shoulder. They were in their own world. A world of intellect, mutual respect, and matched wavelengths. The system was right. The love facilitation program didn't make mistakes about compatibility. They were a perfect match. I was just a glitch in the code. I quietly stood up, taking my purse. Zoe, where are you going? Ben asked from across the table. I have some errands to run. Please excuse me, I said with a polite, soft smile. Arthur's conversation with Chloe paused. He turned his head, his dark eyes narrowing slightly as they landed on me. Errands? It's 8 p.m. on a Friday. Sit down, Zoe. Don't be dramatic. I've already paid my share of the bill at the front, I said, ignoring his command entirely. I looked at the group. It was great seeing you all. Have a wonderful night. I didn't wait for Arthur's response. I turned and walked out of the restaurant. As the heavy glass doors closed behind me, cutting off the noise of the reunion, the cool night air hit my face. I took a deep breath. My chest, which had felt tight for 3 long years, suddenly expanded. I pulled out my phone. The message I had sent yesterday, "Let's end this," still sat there, unread or simply ignored. I didn't care anymore. I hailed a cab and gave the driver Arthur's address. It was time to pack. Arthur's apartment was sleek, modern, and coldly minimalist, much like the man himself. But over the last 3 years, little pieces of me had infested the space. A pair of pink fuzzy slippers by the door. My favorite ceramic mug next to his espresso machine. A bottle of my vanilla body wash in the master bathroom. I brought 2 large duffel bags and began throwing my things into them. I worked methodically. I didn't linger on the memories. When I opened his closet to grab my spare dresses, my hand brushed against his shirts. They smelled of him, cedarwood and oil paint. A sharp pang hit my heart. But I forced myself to swallow it down. Grief is a luxury you can only afford when you've lost something valuable. I hadn't lost a boyfriend. I had just lost a delusion. By the time I finished packing, the apartment looked exactly as it had 3 years ago. Sterile. Empty. My eyes landed on the kitchen island. Sitting there was a small, neatly wrapped box. Inside was the charcoal gray scarf I had spent the last 2 months knitting. My fingers were covered in tiny calluses from the needles. I had watched countless tutorial videos, unraveling and restarting dozens of times to ensure the stitching was flawless. Because you don't have a brain, you can only offer cheap manual labor. Arthur's past words echoed in my ears. He was right. I couldn't write him complex mathematical formulas. All I had was my time, my effort, and my heart. And to him, those things were completely worthless. I picked up the box, walked over to the trash can, and dropped it in. I placed my spare key on the marble counter. System. I spoke into the silence of the room. Yes, Zoe. Can you unbind from me now? The system materialized in my mind as a glowing, apologetic blue orb. I can. Since this was a massive administrative error on my part, you won't be penalized. In fact, to compensate for the 3 years of emotional damage, I've tweaked your luck algorithm. It's not much, but you'll find your career and personal endeavors will go a lot smoother from now on. Thank you, I said softly. Zoe, are you going to be okay? I looked at the key on the counter, then out the window at the city lights. I will be. Goodbye. Goodbye, Zoe. Live well. With a soft, chiming sound, the presence in my head vanished. For the first time since high school, I was completely, utterly alone. I slung the bags over my shoulders and walked out, closing the door firmly behind me. Arthur's POV. The after-party at the local lounge was loud, tedious, and boring. Arthur sat in a leather booth, nursing a glass of scotch, half listening to Chloe debate the future of artificial intelligence with another former classmate. She was brilliant, yes. Beautiful, undeniably. But as the hours dragged on, Arthur found his patience thinning. Chloe's laugh was a little too loud. Her need to correct everyone at the table was grating. He pulled out his phone, his thumb instinctively hovering over Zoe's name. Let's end this. The text from yesterday glared back at him. He scoffed, locking his phone and shoving it back into his pocket. Zoe was throwing another tantrum. She did this occasionally when she felt neglected. She would say something dramatic, withdraw for a day, and then the moment he gave her a crumb of attention, she would come running back, looking at him with those big, devoted eyes. When she had walked out of the restaurant earlier, he had fully expected her to be waiting outside the venue, or at least to have texted him an apology for leaving early. But his phone had been dead silent. Arthur. Chloe slid into the seat next to him, her knee brushing against his. You seem distracted. Bored of us already. Just tired, Arthur said smoothly, stepping out of the booth. I'm going to head out. Oh. Chloe looked genuinely disappointed. She stood up, smoothing down her skirt. Do you want to share a cab? My hotel is on the way to your place. Sure. The cab ride was filled with Chloe's chatter. Arthur responded with polite hums, his mind inexplicably drifting to Zoe. He remembered the way she had looked at him at the restaurant. There was no hurt in her eyes. No jealousy. Just nothing. It unsettled him in a way he couldn't articulate. After dropping Chloe off, he arrived at his apartment. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. Zoe, he called out of habit, toeing off his shoes. Silence. He frowned, turning on the hallway lights. The first thing he noticed was the shoe rack. Zoe's pink slippers were gone. A prickle of irritation spiked in his chest. So, she was really playing this game. He walked into the kitchen to pour himself a glass of water. As he reached for the cabinet, his hand paused. Zoe's favorite mug wasn't there. He looked down. On the marble island, catching the dim light of the range hood, was his spare key. Arthur froze. He stared at the small piece of metal for a long time. Then, moving with sudden erratic urgency, he strode toward the master bathroom. The counter was entirely cleared. Her toothbrush, her face wash, the lingering scent of vanilla gone. He walked into the bedroom and ripped open the closet doors. The space where her clothes used to hang was completely empty. She wasn't throwing a tantrum. She had moved out. Arthur's jaw clenched so tight it ached. Fine, he muttered to the empty room. See how long you last, Zoe. Without his money, without his space, without his protection, she wouldn't last a week. She was too naive, too simple. She would realize how harsh the real world was and come knocking on his door, crying, begging for her spot back. He walked back to the kitchen, grabbed his phone and typed out a message. Stop playing games, Zoe. Bring your stuff back tomorrow, and I'll pretend this didn't happen. He hit send. A moment later, a red exclamation point appeared next to the text. Message not delivered. You have been blocked by this user. Arthur stared at the screen, his chest tightening with an unfamiliar, suffocating feeling. He threw the phone violently onto the couch, running a hand through his hair. As he walked past the kitchen trash can, a splash of charcoal gray caught his eye. He stopped, peering inside. Lying among discarded coffee grounds and junk mail was a neatly folded, hand-knitted scarf. A small, handwritten tag was still attached to it. Happy birthday, Arthur. To keep you warm when you're painting on the balcony. Yours, Zoe. Arthur reached into the trash and pulled it out. The wool was soft, the stitching painstakingly even. He held it in his hands, staring at her neat, rounded handwriting. The word yours had been crossed out, as if she had hesitated before finally giving up. For the first time in his life, Arthur Sterling felt a cold spike of genuine panic. Zoe's POV 6 months later. Zoe, the quarterly reports for the Peterson account are phenomenal. The board was thoroughly impressed. I looked up from my laptop, a genuine smile breaking across my face. Standing in the doorway of my cubicle was Julian, the senior director of marketing. Julian was 32, sharp and possibly kind, and had the kind of warm, golden brown eyes that made you feel completely safe. Thank you, Julian, I said, organizing my notes. I just restructured the demographic data. The product practically sells itself, once you target the right audience. Don't downplay your work, Julian chuckled, leaning against the doorframe. He was dressed in a tailored navy suit, holding 2 cups of coffee. He offered one to me. Caramel macchiato, extra foam. A reward for carrying the team this month. You're a lifesaver. I took the cup, our fingers brushing briefly. A pleasant warmth bloomed in my chest. 6 months. It had been exactly 6 months since I walked out of Arthur's apartment, and my life was unrecognizable. Without the constant emotional drain of trying to please a man who despised me, I suddenly had an abundance of energy. I threw myself into my job at the marketing firm. I stopped hiding behind oversized, drab clothes that made me look like an invisible shadow. Today, I wore a well-fitted burgundy blazer, a silk camisole, and my hair fell in loose, healthy waves down my back. The system's luck algorithm might have helped, but I knew the real change came from within. I finally respected myself. So, Julian said casually, though I noticed a slight pink tint to his ears. To celebrate the Peterson account, I was wondering if you'd let me take you to dinner tonight. Not as colleagues, just as Julian and Zoe. I blinked, looking up at him. Julian had been dropping hints for the past month, but he was always so respectful, always giving me space. I thought about Arthur. I thought about the 3 years of hiding, of being treated like a dirty secret. And then I looked at Julian, a man who praised me publicly, who valued my brain, who wanted to take me out where everyone could see. I'd love that, I said warmly. Julian's face lit up, a brilliant, boyish smile transforming his features. Great. I'll pick you up at 7. It's a date. As Julian walked away with a noticeable spring in his step, my phone buzzed on the desk. It was an unknown number. I had changed my number 3 months ago, so only clients and friends had it. Hello. Zoe speaking. Zoe. The voice on the other end was raspy, strained, and unmistakably familiar. My blood ran cold for a fraction of a second, but then surprisingly, my heart rate stabilized. Arthur, I said flatly. How did you get this number? I asked your mother, he said. He sounded exhausted. Zoe, please don't hang up. I told my mother not to give my information to anyone. I'll have to have a word with her. I kept my voice perfectly professional. What do you want, Arthur? Silence stretched over the line. I need to see you, he finally rasped. I don't think that's a good idea. We have nothing to discuss. Zoe, it's been half a year. I can't do this anymore. This punishment, whatever it is. You win, okay? You win. Just come home. We can talk about making it official. You wanted to be my girlfriend? Fine. Let's make it official. I actually laughed. It wasn't a bitter laugh. It was a laugh of pure, genuine amusement. You think this is a negotiation? I asked, shaking my head even though he couldn't see me. Arthur, you don't get it. I don't want to be your girlfriend. I don't want you. I'm hanging up now. Please don't contact me again. Zoe, wait. I ended the call and blocked the number. I felt nothing. No regret. No lingering attachment. The ghost that had haunted me for years was finally exorcised. Arthur's POV. He stared at the blank screen of his phone, the dial tone ringing in his ears like a death knell. I don't want you. She wasn't crying. She wasn't angry. Her voice had been completely devoid of emotion. She spoke to him the way she would speak to a telemarketer. Arthur's hands trembled. He dropped the phone onto the floor of his messy, dimly lit apartment. The place was a disaster. Canvases were slashed or thrown across the room. Empty takeout containers and liquor bottles littered the marble counters. He hadn't painted a single coherent piece in months. His gallery manager was threatening to drop him. For the first month after she left, he had been arrogant. She'll be back, he told himself. By the second month, he had tried dating Chloe. It was an unmitigated disaster. Chloe demanded to be entertained, challenged, and worshipped. She didn't silently bring him coffee when he was in the zone. She didn't wrap a blanket over his shoulders when he fell asleep on the balcony. When he got sick, Chloe texted him a get-well-soon gif and went to a networking event. He realized, with horrifying clarity, that he didn't want a debate partner. He didn't want a genius. He wanted Zoe. He wanted her soft smiles, her gentle hands, the way she looked at him like he hung the stars in the sky. He had convinced himself she was stupid, an idiot, just to maintain the power dynamic, to keep her desperate for his approval, so he wouldn't have to admit how entirely dependent he was on her love. He had starved her of affection just to keep her on a leash, and she had finally bitten through the rope. He couldn't accept it. He grabbed his coat and keys. He knew where she worked. Her mother had reluctantly told him after he basically begged. He drove to the business district like a madman, parking illegally outside the gleaming glass tower of her marketing firm. It was 6:50 p.m. Employees were trickling out of the lobby. Arthur stood by his car, his heart pounding in his throat. He looked haggard. He hadn't shaved in days, his eyes were bloodshot, and he had lost weight. Then he saw her. Arthur's breath caught. She was walking out of the revolving doors, and she looked breathtaking. She was wearing a deep red blazer, her posture straight, her face glowing with a quiet, radiant confidence he had never seen before. She was laughing. He took a step forward. Zoe. The name died on his lips. Walking right beside her, a hand hovering respectfully near the small of her back, was a tall, handsome man in a tailored suit. The man was looking down at Zoe with an expression Arthur recognized immediately, because it was the expression he had refused to wear for 3 years. Total, unabashed adoration. The man said something, and Zoe tilted her head back, laughing brightly. She looked at the man, her eyes crinkling at the corners. The man reached out, gently tucking a stray lock of hair behind her ear. Zoe didn't flinch. She leaned into the touch, a soft blush coloring her cheeks. Arthur felt as if a physical blade had been driven through his ribs. He couldn't breathe. The pain was so intense his vision blurred. He took another step, desperate, pathetic. He needed to go over there. He needed to grab her wrist, pull her away, tell that man she belonged to him. But as Zoe and the man stopped by a sleek black Audi, Zoe turned her head. Her eyes swept over the street, and for one brief, agonizing second, her gaze met Arthur's. Arthur froze. He waited for the shock, the guilt, the old desperation to flood her face. Instead, Zoe just looked at him. Her eyes were calm, unbothered, and completely clear. She looked at him the way one looks at a stranger they vaguely recognize from a past life. Then she turned back to the man, gave him a dazzling smile, and got into the passenger seat of his car. The engine purred to life, and the Audi pulled away from the curb, merging into the city traffic, disappearing into the sea of lights. Arthur stood alone on the sidewalk, the cold wind biting through his coat. The city moved around him, loud and indifferent. He fell to his knees. Right there on the concrete, the genius, the arrogant artist, the man who was too good for the girl who loved him, finally broke. He buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking with violent, ugly sobs. The tears burned his skin, tasting like bitter ash. He had spent 3 years mocking her for being an idiot. But as he wept on the cold street, suffocating on his own regret, Arthur Sterling finally understood the truth. He was the biggest fool in the world. Epilogue. 3 years later. Zoe, sweetheart, the caterer is asking about the champagne tower. I looked up from the mirror, adjusting the delicate diamond earring in my ear. I smiled at Julian's mother, who was hovering in the doorway of the bridal suite, looking equally stressed and overjoyed. Tell them to set it up by the ice sculpture, Mary, I said smoothly. And please don't stress. Everything is perfect. You're too calm for a bride, Mary laughed, shaking her head as she hurried off. I turned back to the mirror. The woman looking back at me was unrecognizable from the girl who used to cry on a neighbor's balcony. I was 27, a senior director at my firm, and in exactly 1 hour, I was marrying the love of my life. Julian had proposed in Paris, under a quiet, rain-slicked bridge, telling me that his life only truly began the day I handed him that Peterson account file. He loved me loudly, proudly, and without an ounce of hesitation. My phone buzzed on the vanity. I picked it up. It was a news alert from an art blog I still casually followed. Former prodigy Arthur Sterling's gallery closes its doors. A tragic fall from grace. I clicked the article out of mild curiosity. It detailed how Arthur's work had lost its soul a few years ago. He had become a recluse, alienated his wealthy clients with his erratic behavior, and ultimately vanished from the high society art scene. The article featured a recent photo of him. He looked gaunt, hollow-eyed, staring blankly past the camera. The brilliance that once defined him was entirely extinguished. There was a time when seeing that would have sent me running to his side, ready to play the martyr, ready to fix him. Now I just locked my phone, feeling a fleeting, distant sense of pity, before swiping the notification away completely. The door to the suite opened again, and Julian stepped in. He wasn't supposed to see me before the ceremony, but he had always been terrible at following arbitrary rules when it came to me. He froze, his breath catching in his throat as he took in my white lace gown. Julian. I scolded gently, though I couldn't stop smiling. You're breaking tradition. Screw tradition, he whispered, crossing the room to take my hands. He brought my knuckles to his lips, his eyes shimmering with tears. You look. God, Zoe. How did I get so lucky? I looked into his warm, adoring eyes, feeling the steady, safe beat of his heart as he pulled me into his arms. We made our own luck, I whispered, kissing his cheek. Outside, the orchestra began to play. The sun was shining. The future was bright, secure, and completely mine.